we're going to compare two versions of the same knife side by side, because how often is the Vanguard one actually preferred over its bladesmith counterpart? Not very. And we're going to look at those two knives right now. Hey, I'm Jay, and if you use and collect pocket knives like I do, or maybe you're still searching for your ever-elusive grail knife, click on subscribe so I can help you find it. You should be looking at the Kizer Dukes specs right now. On the left is the Vanguard version, on the right is the bladesmith. You might want to go ahead and pause and read. So my original intention was to do a standalone review of this Kizer Dukes bladesmith version, but I ran into a little bit of a problem, and that was the Kizer Dukes Vanguard. See, I had actually purchased and owned this one before the much larger counterpart. And I found it increasingly difficult to try and just form an opinion only of the bladesmith without comparing it to the Vanguard one. So, needless to say, this has now turned into a comparison video where we're just going to go ahead and look at both of these together, side by side, or on top and bottom of each other. I do, however, have a standalone review of the little guy, and so if you go ahead and click up here in the corner, once you're done watching this video, and you can go ahead and check out that review. But right now, we are just going to focus on the big one right here. One of the first things that I noticed about this, other than its 8.5-inch enormous overall size, was the blade stock thickness. Look at that. 4.5 millimeters. That is incredible. But I have to say, I do like my blades to have a little bit thicker of a blade stock. Now, I do like the very, very clean look on this handle. There is only one body screw, or we could say two if you're counting the pivot. Now, I have already disassembled this knife and cleaned it, and I have to tell you, it is probably one of the easiest knives I have ever taken apart. Seriously, like, it's up there in my probably top 3 based on ease of disassembly. Look at this. It actually has a really nice forward finger choil that I can use, and that I'm not worried about cutting my finger. And look at that handle. Plenty of room. I wear about a medium-sized glove. Now I want to bring back in the Vanguard one, which is obviously much smaller, and unfortunately the forward choil on this one is just a hair, too small for me to utilize it and not cut myself. I know, I did say that we were just going to focus on the big one. But see, exactly why I could not do a solo review of this knife, because it's impossible not to compare it to the Vanguard one. I know. I'll get it out of here, out of the way. The deployment on the bladesmith is actually pretty darn good. The detent is very, very strong. Unable to shake it open, gravity flip it, even upside down. Nope, can't do it. The handle, very, very comfortable. And I already pointed out the size of it. The blade steel, they're using S35. VN, great stuff. The handle scales, of course, are titanium, and there are no sharp edges whatsoever on the handle. Everything seems to be, you know, rounded off or chamfered nicely. Centering on this one is just about perfect. Look at that. Well done, Kizer. The texturing, this little design on these titanium scales, it's the same as on the Vanguard one with the G10. No, Jay, don't do it. I'm sorry. I'll get it out of here. The traction on these titanium scales, actually very good. No jimping up here, but you know what? It is not necessary, especially when you're looking at a giant flipper like this one, which does have just a couple rows of jimping on it. But yeah, jimping definitely not necessary on this knife. There's enough traction from that texture. Now they did give the blade, if you guys can see that, really nice, very nice stone wash finish. And we already talked about that blade stock thickness of 4.5 millimeters, but what I found pretty interesting is that they went with a hollow grind on this very thick blade. So that's nice. It keeps down, you know, it keeps this, well, relatively thin for, you know, behind the edge for a blade stock of, well, this thick. The weight of 4.77 ounces, that's not bad for an overall 8.5 inch knife. It's not great, but you know what? It's not terrible, so I'm not going to consider it. I can't consider that a gripe here. Now, unfortunately, we have to talk about some of the potential deal breakers, but before we do that, I just want to quickly remind you guys to click on that subscribe button if you're looking for knife reviews to get right to the point. The first potential deal breaker that I noticed right out of the box is that there was a little bit of blade play. And so what has to be done, at least on my version, is that I have to have the pivot screw completely tightened, so totally wrenched down, for there not to be any play. Because as soon as I started to back it off just like a quarter of an inch, quarter of a turn at a time, the blade play would be right back immediately. So this pivot is gonna need a little bit of Loctite, which I gotta be honest with you guys, I don't like using Loctite on the pivot. I do have some knives where it's absolutely necessary to be able to use the knife, but I just don't like using it. And I wish I would have had it out for you guys, but now you can get Loctite. It's in like a stick form, kind of like, you know, like when you're in grade school or whatever, the glue sticks. Now the blue Loctite also comes that way as well. I honestly thought that the closing action on the Bladesmith version would be better. I mean, considering that, you know, the blade is riding on ceramic ball bearing pivot, and I put some oil in there, I've cleaned it, like I said earlier, and it's not, I don't know, it's not where I like it. I mean, you see it still does kind of fall shut, but I really do have to give it constant shake to get it to do that. The flipper, now the flipper on this is humongous. It's big. I mean, the flipper on the Vanguard one, I thought that this one was big. And this is a 7.125 inch knife when it's opened, and I thought this one had a big flipper. This is huge. 0.39 inches is that flipper size. Yeah, that's pretty darn big. So that's going to be pecking on some stuff in your pocket. I just don't like that. Now, the pocket clip, while the milled clip, it looks good. I think it looks really good, but it's not deep carry. So it would be right about, you'd have about that much sticking out of your pocket. For some of you, that's not a big deal. For me, I don't like this. So it's not deep carry, and it's also not switchable for lefties, and I happen to be a lefty. The price, oh man, $220. $220. Yeah, that's a lot, especially when we bring in the Vanguard one. Bring this back into the equation. $69 or $220. I mean, I fully understand, why there's a price difference. I mean, up here on top, that is a big hunk of S35VN blade steel. Down here on the Vanguard, you're looking at VG10, and what is that? Just like, 3 inches of it. Up here, you're looking at another big slab of titanium. This one, the Vanguard one, just features, the G10 scale. So I get it. I mean, there has to be a price difference, obviously. What I don't get, what I did not expect, I should say, is to actually like and prefer the smaller Vanguard at $69 over the higher end $220 bladesmith one. And now I'm a guy, I like larger knives. I don't like, well, up until recently, I really was not a fan of smaller knives, but as I get older, as I am in the hobby a little bit longer, my preferences and those things start to mature a little bit and change. So now, I am interested in smaller knives. I will tell you, about a 3-inch blade is probably the smallest that I'm comfortable with owning. But yeah, I actually prefer the Vanguard over the bladesmith, and that's great. It's cheaper, it's lighter. I mean, it's much lighter, 2.6 ounces on this. I forget that it's in my pocket. 4.77 ounces. You're gonna know that you're carrying this. And no, that weight isn't terrible, but it's not great. It's just kind of, I don't know, okay. What I would like to know from you guys is, which one do you prefer? The bladesmith or the Vanguard? Let me know in the comments section down below. And I've got to tell you, for me, again, this is it. And I was very surprised by that, because I love larger knives. I mean, VG10 blade steel, S35VN. For me, the S35VN is not a big enough of an increase to warrant $220 over the $69 price tag of this one. You might not agree with that, and also let me know in the comment section below. Now, I do have a couple videos that I've created where I'm comparing this one to the Benchmade Bug Out and the Kershaw Skyline, because this has a lot of similarities with those two knives. Again, click up here in the corner at the end of this video. You can watch those comparisons as well, because it's really, really good stuff. Now, for those of you with those larger, big, like grizzly bear paws for hands, you're not gonna like the Vanguard. It's gonna feel like a toy in your hands. I mean, I wear a medium-sized glove and it feels like a toy in my hands. So you larger pod guys are going to want to go, you have to go with this one, because there is just plenty of room on this handle to accommodate different sized hands. So this, not damn handsome. This, damn handsome. Very much so. Now, those of you that do find this one too toy-like, you do have some options, actually, within the Vanguard line from Kizer. This is the Vanguard version of the VLOX 2. It also has a recurved edge, just like the Dukes. VG10 blade steel. This one is a little bit larger, 3.375-inch blade. So makes it a little bit larger than this. And dang it, I can't remember the price on this one. I want to say 80 bucks, 80 or 85. I don't know. Those of you, you know, I'm sure if you can correct me in the comment section. Another option, if you find the Dukes Vanguard too small, is the Kaiser Begleiter, which again in the Vanguard series, VG10 blade steel. Definitely a gentleman's carry, but it's a little bit larger to, yeah, this does not feel as toy-like as the smaller Dukes. So this one, I believe, 52 bucks, 52 or 57. Gosh, Jay, get your facts right, huh? So my point being that you do have options if you really just don't like this smaller one.